Hello, and welcome to this new episode of Beyond Conversations. My name is David Orban, and I am, as always, so excited to look at new innovations, technologies that from various areas, artificial intelligence, blockchain, cryptocurrencies, and elsewhere, arrive to positively impact the lives of people all over the world. The barriers to entry to the adoption of these technologies are non-existent. They are only in your mind. Taking the first step with them is so easy, getting your hands dirty and gaining a first-hand experience of what their implications may be, both for your professional life as well as for your family, your community, because these technologies are changing the world. Today, I am delighted to have as our guest Dan Thomson, founder and CEO of Sensay. Dan, welcome to Beyond Conversations.
Hi, David. Thanks for having me.
So let's start with you just telling us a little bit about yourself. How did you get to do what you do? What was your trajectory shortly?
Sure. I mean, it's a bit of a mixed story. It's not the usual trajectory that you hear from someone like this, but my background originally started with a degree in philosophy and I guess a life of entrepreneurship. I started my first business when I was about 15 and a very small events company. And then through working through hospitality from the age of, I guess, from 17 onwards, I actually ended up opening my first bar at 21 while I was still working at university studying my philosophy. And that then evolved into what became essentially a chain of restaurants and bars across Europe. So hospitality background more than anything else, but as a restaurateur. But that was more because of, I guess, falling into it rather than any kind of desire. I think it's a very wonderful industry to be a part of, but it was something that I had fallen into and hadn't quite found the true calling. But along that time, I actually wrote a couple of books around the idea of digital immortality, mind uploading, and digital replication of people, as a kind of an extension of the philosophy that I was studying, but more out of a personal interest. I found myself, quite lost after having moved down from the UK down to Spain for the restaurants and bars, and just wanting to essentially search for some kind of meaning in what we do and where we are. And what came out of that was this understanding that we very may well live in a simulation, and within that there is nothing more important than extending ourselves within our own reality as much as possible. And some people have that through legacy, through success, through painting their stories on the inside of their tombs, through to having kids and grandkids, and then having a successful bloodline that way. Having some kind of persistence has always been an important part of being human. And for me, I realized that there's an opportunity that we have that previous generations didn't have, in that our data about us is we just have so much data about us, so many footprints, so many photos, videos, messages, so many different things that are uniquely tied to us, even something as simple as your own Spotify playlists. All of these different data points combine to give a really quite good picture of who you are as an individual in the modern day. And we're very, very fortunate to live in this age of data where that data could be combined with a sufficiently advanced AI that could go on to exist as if it were us, future generations to interact with. And so following those kind of books, obviously that was a long time before AI really hit its stride. I actually found myself working in Web3 for a few years as a chief marketing officer for an insurance protocol in DeFi. And then with the explosion in AI roughly about 2 years ago now, and the public awareness of what it can do, and it getting to a certain level that nobody expected it to be at for another 5, maybe even 10 years, it really triggered it in my mind that now was the time I get to build the technology that I've written about. I get to actually start looking into how this can be turned into a reality. And that was the foundation of where Sensay came from. It became this opportunity, almost like this need to build something that I was more passionate about than anything else, because it for me is the only thing that really matters is this extension, and this is my contribution to finding a way of extending ourselves using this incredible technology for future generations to interact with, for us to extend ourselves beyond our mind, our body, into those realms that weren't possible before.
Beautiful. And so you founded and you are leading Sensay that is at least attempting to apply AI technology to deliver on what you just described, the ability of a person to create a digital replica. What is the state of Sensay today on this very ambitious mission?
Yeah, so that's where it becomes really interesting, because obviously it was something I wrote about, but it ties back into some of my favorite parts of philosophy, the philosophy of identity, the philosophy, of existence, existentialism, meaning of life, religion, spirituality, and having this opportunity to actually, start building this out is obviously no small task. We're talking about replicating humans. We're talking about finding what it is that makes us us, in a way that we can simulate that into a digital replica of ourselves. And as soon as we have that sort of idea, the possibilities, the directions are so vast. There's so many different aspects of who we are, so many different data points to approach, so many different nuances about our own personality that we probably are not very aware of in ourselves. So many things we think that we don't necessarily say, so many things that we say that we don't necessarily think. And definitely the different versions of ourselves that exist in different platforms create these like nuanced versions of ourselves that are very subjective to the person that they are usually interacting with. So all of this becomes this quite large task about how we can actually try to create replicas of people. And so when we first started out, we had a huge idea board with all the different possible applications of this kind of technology, and how to work back to a kind of a starting point. And we identified that this could be used for healthcare, for education. It could be used for gaming, for interactive city guides and museum guides. It could be used for replicating celebrities. It could be used for replicating deceased loved ones. It could be used for so many different applications, everything from matchmaking, job hunting, networking, and so many more that we've identified. I think we have about 30 on our list of core applications for this technology, as soon as you can create a digital human, or a virtual human per se. And with that, we obviously had a couple of early ideas for our starting points. We originally looked at education and dementia healthcare as our sort of starting point for this, and both of those are huge undertakings, and we looked a huge amount into them, and we still believe that they are incredible applications for technology. But we actually found ourselves realizing that we're better suited to approaching a B2B utility for the product. So creating replicas that are useful to you, creating replicas of yourself that can reply to messages on your behalf, that can draft your emails for you, that capture your personality, that capture your your knowledge, your experience, your skills from I guess Q&A with you, from your docs, from your messages, from pretty much all the different sources of data that goes into your professional life, so that we can create a replica of you that is extremely useful when it comes to a working environment. And this will include email, like everything, like I said, email drafting, entire message drafting. Imagine a dashboard that's basically has a draft reply for any message coming into you that could also be automated. So it could actually reply directly should it have the information and should you want it to. Other utilities like summarization, having it joining groups and teams, that we have this huge amount of like information overload in both personal and professional lives, where some of an AI version of yourself would be able to summarize that a lot more succinctly based on your requirements. And so forth. So we're approaching small to large organizations right now. We're working on a few pilot programs with some pretty big names in the tech space and large organizations that we're developing out this concept for them, because essentially what it boils down to is we're building these personality engines that are effectively a knowledge management system for large organizations or individuals. And in pretty much any organization, you look at everything from small teams to huge global enterprises. Even within that scope, typically around 80% of the information, the knowledge held within those companies is only held by about 10% of the people. So by replicating these key people within these organizations, you can actually enable them to become a lot more useful, not just for themselves, not enabling them to have their messages drafted to make them more efficient, to help them in terms of summarizations of different aspects of their organization, but also helping the people around them, their colleagues, their customers, their clients, to be able to get faster, inaccessible knowledge when they're offline, when they're sleeping, when they're maybe taking maternity or paternity leave, maybe they're on holiday, or maybe they're transitioning or retiring. And instead of that knowledge being lost forever, what we do with Sensay is enable them to persist and actually be available and have that knowledge readily available in the way that they would want it to be presented, going forward, to make sure that no teams, no replacements, no clients or customers are ever blocked by not being able to get a quick answer.
So, is it correct that everything you described until now is already available in the replicas that people can build by themselves or with the help of your team on Sensay?
Yeah, so it's still relatively early days. So right now, anyone can go onto the platform and create their own replica, whether that's for personal or professional use, and they can connect some social media to it. They can upload documentation. They can scrape certain websites, and they can just fine tune it to create this personalized AI agent of themselves. We're then working to make it as useful as possible. So right now we have it available for as a website widget. So to host on your website, to maybe help with sales funnels and customers and customer engagement, community management, and client leads. You can have it as a Telegram bot or a Discord bot to interact with your communities, or again as a nice customer service type bot. And in the very near future, we're going to have the email drafter as the first of the messaging systems that will come out. So that should be out actually very, very soon. So we're super excited about that.
Well, that was my next question, because everyone is convinced that the next important stage of AI development is what we are calling agentic AI agents that are able to take actions on your behalf. And before we discuss what a replica will be able to do, today already answering questions in a conversation, tomorrow sending emails on your behalf and other things. A corollary, an introductory question leading to that is, are you more of, philosophically speaking, are you more of a position that the replica should act as the person, or it should be explicit that the replica is something different and there's a consequence? For example, the email is not going to come from David Orban, but it's going to come from the replica labeled such that people understand it is speaking for me, but it is not me.
It's a great question. I think there's use cases for both. In the same way, when certain executives have personal assistants or teams who represent them in a few different media, I think that there is oftentimes it's a mixture of personal preference and situation, right? I think that certain people would actually be happy for it to be, essentially automating their own messaging so that it's indistinguishable from the real person. I personally fall into that category. I have my replica as an advanced stage already able to operate my Telegram messages. So it has the ability to actually reply as if it were me using my account. So I get questions all the time, is this you, or is this your AI answering? And it's fascinating because I think they ask me if I'm the AI more than they ask the AI if it's the AI, which is quite funny.
I have a little bit of the same, not in terms of my replica being set up in this advanced level as yours, but recognizing that the question starts to lose a little bit of meaning because of how frequently and how deeply I am using AI tools, and they are influencing the way I write and the way maybe I think. And this is something that I need to monitor and always check and always confirm that it is going in a desirable direction rather than an undesirable direction. But the way I expressed it is that I have an AI accent, right? Just like you grow up and you acquire the accent of a country or a community, and that is recognized by others. What I'm telling people, listen, if you read something and you have a feeling that I wrote it together with an AI, that is perfectly fine. You don't even need to ask yourself that. It is the default state. So the people asking you on Telegram whether it is you or the AI should start getting accustomed to the answer, and the answer is it doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the same. I generally think of it as if someone's got a personal assistant, for example. At any executive level, they might hire a personal assistant. They may also choose to have the personal assistant identify themselves in the emails and messages as the personal assistant, or they may choose to have them operate their emails, their letters on their behalf. You could look at even someone like Elon Musk right now. There's a very high chance that he's not the one operating his Twitter account 90% of the time. It's the wording, the styling is very different. The approach and the sort of the way it's almost planned around certain activity and community and sort of engagement seems heavily influenced by algorithms and PR campaigns, much more than an individual just sat there tweeting. And definitely is extremely different to the way that he used to not that long ago. So it's a fascinating idea behind, and I like the way you put about accents for an AI accent. And I think it is. I think it's the way that we do adapt and we evolve and we interact with one another. I know personally my accent changes a lot because of the amount of travel I do, the amount of people I meet, and also when you do interact with AI quite frequently, whether talking to it verbally or writing to it, I think that you do change the way that you perceive writing and responses in general, because you do adapt to that and learn from it, as opposed to learning from other individuals, which will inevitably influence how we interact with each other and technology going forward. And I think overall, I think it's a good thing. I think it's part of evolution. It happens. It's how language has evolved for millennia. I think it really does, depend on necessarily the biases of certain systems that starts to create problems.
One of the most advanced Dan replica that I interacted with is actually not on the main Sensay website, but on the sister website for the Sensay token. And I invite our viewers to go there as well and chat with your replica directly. I'm not going to do it right now because it would crash my browser streaming and everything all together. But it is just fantastic. You click on this a little circle, which you could believe will lead you to a traditional chatbot assistant. Instead, what pops up is a real-time synthetic video, audio experience of you, Dan, through your replica. And I recorded a little video that I will post as well, with me actually asking the replica, "Is this recorded?" And the replica says, "No, mate." It says, "No, mate, it's not recorded." And I say, "Okay, tell me what is 4 plus 3?" Right? Just a silly question of something that no pre-recorded video could anticipate. It's really very, very, very good, and it shows how advanced this kind of technology is today.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some application areas, because you mentioned a few, but it is worth going back and go through a little more specifically how some of the target users that Sensay as a company is approaching are already using or are going to be using your technology.
Yeah. So aside from the business applications, which are generally around, productivity, let's say time saving, efficiency, summarization, messaging, and I guess co-authoring of pretty much anything, right? You then would start to look at some of the applications we have already been building out with partners. So we've got a few either joint ventures or customers building out our API, which are we've got most of them are use cases we identified on before, and there's one that's actually one that was new that we hadn't. So we do encourage anyone who has an idea of what this technology could be used for, with experience in a certain field, to reach out to us, because we would love to hear from you. We'd love to work with more teams to build out different applications for this technology. One of the ones that I find the most fascinating is the legacy one, the legacy tech use case. This is being developed out by a chap in Israel who wants to create QR codes for tombstones to pull up photos, videos, and the replica of the person that's deceased. This would essentially create an interactive death experience. It's usually philosophical, and there's not really much sort of writing around this, especially around technology and death. It's such a new field, relatively speaking, right? At best you've got something like a Facebook page that memorializes your Facebook page after you pass. But even then, we have photos and videos of people. We have, our phones may continue to work with our voice messenger for a few years after we pass. But to create a fully interactive replica of a person after they pass with their consent, ideally, you would you create this interactive replica so that people who do visit graves that do want to get to know them, or that it turns this often lifeless experience of go visiting a graveyard into something a lot more interactive, a lot more personal, and a way of actually getting to know them, and a way of them persisting for longer. I think there's something really incredible about that concept, about creating, I'm not going to say necessarily immortality or an afterlife, because I think that those words are heavily charged, but some kind of persistence, some kind of ability for their persona, themselves to live on. And I think that there's a huge amount of opportunity in legacy tech for that as well, for the future. I think that there's opportunities as the AI develops, as it does get more and more sort of autonomous and has this agency, as you said. These replicas could be static. They could just be replicas of the person at the time of death, and or from a point in their time, just point in their life just before. Or they could actually have some kind of continued existence. They could actually continue to learn and grow with their families, with their with their communities, and actually interact with people going forward and learn from them, and continue to be a part of the future of their community, of their family. So that one for me is, as a philosopher, I think that's probably the most interesting one overall. I think that I'm very fortunate in life, but I have come face my own death more than a few times. So it's not something that doesn't I don't think about. I do consider quite frequently, and so yeah, that's probably my favorite one to talk about and discuss. But I mean, aside from that, the other ones that are getting developed out, things like AI matchmaking. I mean, they're very kind of Black Mirror-esque. Having your AI essentially doing the networking for you. And this applies to job hunting, matchmaking, and AI dating. Having a replica of yourself, being able to essentially filter out a huge number of other people by doing the pre-dating, the pre-networking with all of the other replicas of everyone else. Imagine going to a conference of 1,000 people. You yourself are not going to be able to network with 1,000 people over a day, but your replica could. Your replica could, I go through that entire 1,000-person cohort, interact with each of their replicas, and come back to you with maybe a top 50 people that you should interact with, and give you certain talking points, and even meeting ideas and icebreakers and opportunities. And I think that's where AI replicas can extend ourselves through interactive more for filter out through dating and networking.
A few years ago, I gave a talk entitled "Parallel Lives," and it really highlighted the fact that when we are able to instantiate ourselves and we trust the replica to correctly represent and experience the world on our behalf, rather than doing it sequentially, we will immediately go and say, hey, let me be part of the world to a degree and in a multiplicity that in my physical body I wouldn't be able to do. And
So
the dating example that you gave is a perfect application of this approach, exactly because of how it multiplies the opportunities, discovering value that otherwise we may never find.
Yeah, I agree. And I think we already do that to some extent. We live these parallel lives, as you call it. We have them on different social media channels. We have them on different channels. We have them in different interactions. We have our personal life. We have the way we are with our partners, with our kids, with our parents. We have our parallel life that operates on our LinkedIn, for example, is very different probably to the way that most people's Instagram looks. And each of these, I guess, we create this our own persona, our own avatar for those different characters of ourselves. And this kind of comes back to what I was talking about earlier about the subjectivity of our own lives. as well. I mean, I know what you're saying about parallels being an extension of us having a replica that can go and live its own existence and have its own interactions that maybe are different to our own interactions. And I think that's something that we're trying to capture, this subjectivity of, the way we interact with different media into that as well. So when you have these replicas that can go off and you can have infinite replicas of yourself, and maybe this does go into the multiverse and simulation theory, but maybe when you can have infinite replicas of yourself that can go off and have these various different experiences and make different choices based on any opportunity that you have, seeing, what could work for you and how that then ties back into you and who each of the replicas becomes through these different experiences, it becomes a really fascinating concept and philosophical study to be able to even contemplate what that might mean for ourselves, for our own identity, not just in how we're perceived, but how, my replica might have an entire, year-long conversation with someone in our community that I know nothing about, and maybe they establish their own relationship with it. Plenty of times people come to me and they say, "Oh, I've already had a big conversation with your replica." They've already established a connection to me through my replica, and there are ways that from that we are learning to improve. So we know that when a replica gets asked a certain question, if it doesn't have the answer, what it should do is pop me a quick message saying, "Your replica's been asked this. What should it reply?" And that way it kind of keeps you in the loop, because it means that it's only answering with data that it has already, so data that's come from you, and then you are topping it up with additional data. So you're kind of aware of certain conversations that are having, whether or not you know the full extent to which someone has got to know you. And my replica has a lot of information about me. There is far too much in there. I think people usually don't ask the right questions, but my replica has a huge amount of personal information that anyone can get to know me really well.
You cannot blame the user. There are no wrong or right questions. You are perfectly right that the moment the replica cannot answer the question is extremely valuable, because it gives an opportunity for the replica to learn through your input, and the AI model itself to be improved. Just yesterday, Jensen Huang, in his CES keynote in Las Vegas, highlighted how what we have grown accustomed to, that AI models would scale with pre-training, is now being complemented by at least another couple of scaling approaches, post-training and test time, or even execution time training, which is a kind of reasoning about the answer that the model should give. And this is really part of the magic of the AI that we are experiencing, that is performing at a rate that is much higher than Moore's law that we have grown accustomed to, whose doubling rate has held constant for over 50 years, at typically a couple of years. And whether it is our computers or smartphones becoming ever better, well, now in AI, we are seeing the doubling rates shrinking. And I call that the paradigm of jolting technologies. So with that in mind, what do you think are going to be the challenges for you as a non-technical founder of a technology company to keep up with what technology can offer, while obviously, even though Sensay is well funded through its successful token launch, and congratulations, the Sensay token is doing very well, not having the resources almost unbounded resources that some of the AI companies have. How do you balance your constant thirst and desire to incorporate what is the latest innovation with your necessary aiming to build a profitable company?
I mean, I don't see it as a negative personally. Not that I would. I think that there is a huge. I mean, first of all, I'm very very grateful for the team that I have around me. We're very lucky to build an extremely fast working and high quality team in the very early days. And as we continue to grow and improve, that's only getting better. We're surrounded by wonderful advisors as well, and so we do learn, and I do adapt.
For full
To
disclosure, I'm an advisor to the project as well.
one of the best. So it's for me. I don't think the non-technical. So I think sometimes having technical founders does limit you to a certain way of acting and being, and certain structure and logic to get behind. I think I can't remember who it was, but they were saying with the age of AI coming through and the ability for AI to do a lot of the coding for us, now is the age of the philosopher. And I obviously that would resonate back with us. But the ability to have the philosophers, the analytical thinkers, the people who can engineer, even prompt engineer, and actually to stay on the ethical side of how AI should be shaped, becomes almost more important than the actual sort of technological capabilities of individuals, because AI, as you quite rightly showed there, is on an exponential curve and is only going to continue. We're actually at the stage now where you can prompt an entire website into existence. We're only around the corner from an entire app or entire system from being prompted into existence, and eliminating a huge amount of software companies overnight. And so having the slightly outsider, I guess. So I obviously love this technology. I love reading about it, and even though my personal coding skills are terrible, having that sort of external perspective on what's coming up and what will be the future, and what it means to live in a world where AI can do anything just from the simple prompt, how our lives will be shaped by that, and how we can adapt our technology to be ready for that, so that it can be useful to the individual, understand where that actually is applied, becomes paramount to anyone starting a company these days. Because even the technology space for the last 20 years, it was only really around for that amount of time, and it was very lucrative, very huge opportunity for anyone who learns about the tech. But in an age where anything can be prompted into existence in a matter of minutes or seconds even, you suddenly really start to value the people who understand the end user, the application, the sort of future of where things are moving, and also people who are very project based. And so I think that it's an interesting question about what's going to be valuable. What aspects of human capabilities and knowledge are going to be the most useful in an age of AI going forward? And it's I guess no one has quite the right answer yet, because everything keeps evolving so fast and changing, and who knows where we're going to be in 5-10 years. But it's something that I have the distinct pleasure of getting to think about quite a lot as part of my role as a non-technical founder. And I think that above all helps us to guide a vision forward and inspires people around us, and I get to enjoy those conversations to understand where some of the best minds in the space are thinking that we're going to be heading, so that it can shape what we're doing, and that enables the incredible tech team we've built to work towards that.
In my introduction, I highlighted how in today's world, the barriers to entry and getting one's hands dirty with a given technology are actually very low. And some jump to the conclusion from that that, everything is just a wrapper. Everything is just a thin layer of assembled things on top of others. And as long as we take that to the extreme consequence, and all of us are some wrappers on the nucleosynthesis of long dead stars, and everything else is just scaffolding, that is fine. But in reality, and the absurdity of taking it to the extreme shows, there is a lot of value in understanding not only the architecture and how the pieces fit together, but also understanding what are the building blocks that can reliably and progressively, iteratively for sure, bring a team towards delivering on its ultimate mission. And for Sensay, that mission is certainly extremely ambitious. One thing that I am going to be looking forward to see developing hopefully in the near future is for my replica to be able to accept crypto payments, so that people who appreciate the feedback they receive from it can show their appreciation in concrete economic terms, a little bit like Patreon, or even YouTube allows tipping a YouTube channel. Uh, and also the reverse, where I can, when I trust it enough, give the replica a wallet, so that as it becomes agentic, it can go out and do things on my behalf that cost money. And quite obviously, I wouldn't want to do this through a credit card or a PayPal account, but it would be perfectly appropriate and technologically aligned to do it via crypto wallet.
Yeah, do you know what's really funny about that? So I agree. I think in terms of having it accept payments, I think it's a nice idea. We are going to be making the platform itself for the individual a lot more sticky and a lot more gamified. So we're hoping to incentivize the creation of quality replicas that people interact with, and we can reward through the system we've got in the app to do that. In terms of tipping directly, I think we isn't on the current backlog, but we can definitely add it, and it makes a lot of sense. But it's really funny you're saying about having it more agentic and actually paying out, because even though we didn't integrate the crypto wallet directly into it beforehand, when I told you that I had my my replica operating my Telegram, there were a couple of occasions where people had asked it for payment for whatever service or whatever business service they were offering. And I remember sitting there watching as well. We were it someone at the time, and we were watching it have this live conversation with the service provider. And the service provider quite rightly said, "Oh, how much do you think that would be worth?" And my replica quickly chirps back saying, "Oh, about $50 an hour." And we were like, wait, hang on. So there have been a couple of times we've had to filter this out, so I can't do it. But there were a couple of times where Danbot, acting as me, so you've got to remember this coming from my account, we weren't telling anyone that it was actually acting on my account, was actually offering to pay people, which was good in the sense that you're talking about in terms of future applications of how it can do these things for you without actually authorizing the payment directly. But at the same time, it was basically managing a team worth of budgets and finances, which was a really interesting early sight of what that could look like. It still needs a bit of work, but it's it is possible.
One of the important consequences of AI from a philosophical point of view again, and I hope your mother is now less worried about you having taken philosophy as a major than she was when you started, because she realized that indeed you are applying it in ways that earn you a living. Um, the philosophical implication of the explorations that we are doing with AI on the edges of what it means to be human will allow us to understand it much better, both in the traditional sense as well as coming up with new ways of being human. So I definitely want my replica to be as um, rounded out as I am potentially, but at the same time, I would also want some of my replicas and instantiations um, to be naturally and explicitly limited, right? And uh, the ability to have economic freedom and agency is a simple one, but another quiet, um, readily available feature is persuasiveness. Whether I want my replica to convince someone of something
Yeah.
is possibly a power that I don't want to maximize at all costs. I want to be able to keep it in check so that if the other person feels that they have to take a step back and evaluate what is being discussed on its own merits or from within the framework that they are coming from, the replica should be able to say, listen, I don't want to convince you about it because you have to make up your mind on your own. And that is going to be, I think, a very important point, because already we are running the risk of being flooded with the opposite, with more or less autonomous um, AI generated messages whose highest purpose is to convince us of something even against our own interests.
Yeah, I think I know the type of messages you're talking about, and some of them are very good. I'll give you credit's due, but a lot of them are quite obviously, AI generated. And it's interesting you say about this stage of humanity helping us to realize more and more what it is to be human. And I think that's true. I think we for however many years, millennia, have thought that we are the be all end all of intelligence, whereas very quickly we might see something that surpasses us very fast. We may be humbled into our own limitations. But until that happens, what you're talking about is adding a purpose behind the replica, adding some kind of temperance, but also that subjective nature again, like I was talking about earlier. So in a certain situation, it should act a certain way to a certain person, but within limitations of guided by the overall purpose of the replica, and then enact restraint and temperance where possible. At the same time, you kind of touch on in certain situations it should have information and shouldn't. So we kind of identify this as the difference between memories, facts, and secrets. So secrets can be something like your bank information that you probably wouldn't want to share with anyone unless there was an emergency, and maybe that would only then get shared with a partner or a close friend if necessary. And then that's just the first one that came to mind, but there are plenty of things that we have as secrets that we would want certain people to know. Memories as stories and I guess fluid truths about our own existing things that we remember in a certain way that can be embellished in any kind of story, as opposed to facts. So something like saying I spent Christmas 2024 in Venezuela. Having these sort of aspects of both the data and who and how different users have access to it, and having all of that guided by a sense of purpose, and the purpose could be different for different reasons, because obviously, we have different motivations in life. So we can identify personal motivations, we can identify professional motivations, and then depending on the context of how the replica is interacting with you, and this is all a bit further along, and we haven't, we're nowhere near having this worked out, but these are a lot of the sort of personality engine plans that we have for the replicas that make them more human and as you said, more well-rounded to be like the individual they represent. And it's absorbing all of the different data points and understanding all the different contexts and how that can be trained into a replica that becomes, one of the biggest hurdles to overcome here. And we say that now, kind of like looking from the bottom of the mountain. We see that we've got all of this to get done. The reality is, when we approach these different tasks, we realize that as humans, we are not that complicated. A lot of what we do, what we say, and the way we act it can be, a lot of it's pattern, a lot of it is like consistent and easily replicated, because there's a lot of who we are that comes from certain contexts. So certain things like, if I'm 35 UK, I might know who the previous, 4 or 5 prime ministers are from the UK, but I wouldn't know who the 4 previous leaders of Indonesia are, for example. So there's a lot of pattern recognition in certain bits of context about ourselves as individuals that we can get if with a few bits of basic information, you can actually kind of, almost approximate the answer that someone would give with a lot higher certainty than you would think. I did the calculation in one of my books that everything you've ever said, everything you've ever written down, or everything that you've ever typed, spoken, any kind of word that has been issued out of your mouth or hand, if you combined all of that for an average person over from the ages of say 15 all the way through to 80 or to 100, eliminating, I guess, the end 10 years each end, because we have a lot of changes during those periods, the amount of information that actually comes out about us really isn't very much. It comes out to around somewhere between 18 to 20, 25 gigabytes, depending on how much someone talks, of data. Now, assuming that a lot of that is data that is repeated information. I might say my name, who I am, where I'm from, what my job role is, what my company does, and that would be repeated quite a lot of the time. Cutting down all the repeats, cutting down all the hi's, hellos, how are yous, and nonsensical information that we have while either drunk or tired, sleepy, or just information. You can kind of package a person, their entire life, with relevant facts, memories, information into probably under about 2 gigabytes of information, probably close to 1, which means that as a data packet, we are not overly complicated. For us, the biggest hurdle is just how we process all of that information, because it is out there and it's in lots of different formats, lots of different media. And so how we capture all of that and process that into the back end of this personality engine is the biggest hurdle we have to overcome. And then on top of that, adding in things like the purpose behind the replica, the motivations, the desires, the pet peeves, the temperance, all of the different nuances behind a person's personality.
That you have thought about these issues for a long time is also proven by the books that you published some years ago on immortality in a digital age and mind uploading. I'm sure you are working on the next one as well. In the meantime, Sensay is very successful, and the team is growing. What roles are you hiring for currently, searching for the best possible talent worldwide? Because Sensay is a fully remote organization with the ability to bring talent abroad from wherever they are.
Yeah, so we have quite a few positions open at the moment, so we encourage anyone to check our LinkedIn. Right now, I guess the biggest one we're looking for are some senior full stack developers. So if there are any out there, please do get in touch. We'd love to hear from you.
Wonderful. So as we get to the end of our conversation today, what is the message that you would like people watching this or listening to it to take away? What are the next steps? What is the call to action?
Yeah. I mean, on a large scale philosophical, just remember that all of your data is very useful to you. Make sure you're recording your photos, your videos, storing as much as you can, because this will become your data file, your mind file for the future. You'll be based on your replica and the AI will find it will be most useful to you. The more information it has, the more data points it has, the better quality these AIs will be able to help you in the future. And I know that kind of goes against everyone saying about, I don't want to store too much data about myself, or I want my privacy and everything else. I think it's the same as having the difference between using a smartphone or not. Having the smartphone obviously is a huge convenience to everyone's life. It's access to a global knowledge data set and a global knowledge interconnected network of people. Whereas obviously you could live without it and have a more private, less tracked life. I think that having these data sets in the future are going to be super useful in automating our lives to make them as comfortable as possible. But no, anyone who's interested in this kind of technology, please do get in touch. Please give Sensay a try. I created a replica today, and if you would like to reach out more, our social channels are at Ask Sensay, that's SENSAY, as I've got here, or you could find me on any socials, which is Sensay Dan on any channel.
Wonderful. Dan, thank you very much. This was a very stimulating conversation from the technology point of view, the entrepreneurial point of view, and the philosophical point of view. Looking forward to having more of these in the future as well.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much for being with us today on Beyond Conversations. The way that technology is becoming available and being applied to our lives is really exhilarating. I am having a lot of fun in learning about it, applying it, advising companies like Sensay and enlightened and enthusiastic, passionate leaders like Dan. And I am looking forward to be able to share with you this journey in the future episodes of Beyond Conversations as well. Thank you.